Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Tony Mobley. We are happy to have the CEO of Tactile Solutions Incorporated, David Schleppenbach. Today is September 10th, 2025. This is episode 35 of 2025 of Conversations with Tony Mobley. This conversation used today is used by softwares Mimo Live and Zoom. Conversations with Tony Mobley is produced by Clarlock Lopez Waterman and his team. Thank you, sir, and thank you, team. Conversation with Tony Mobley can be seen on our website, conversationswithtonymobley.com. And now we are going to get started. But before we get started, there is a matter that I think is important. You can ask questions in the YouTube chat. However, if you choose not to ask a question in the YouTube chat, you can go to Mukana. And there should be a link in the YouTube chat for you to participate in that conversation. And the reason we have this is courtesy of Alex Lindsay and 090. And there you can ask your questions, and your questions can be voted up or down. And now we're going to get started with our first question today for Dave. Please give us a brief overview on who you are. Thank you, sir, again for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Tony. It's delightful to be here and always a pleasure to interact with people and have conversations and hopefully learn a little bit something new. So my name is Dave Schleppenbach. I am a resident of Lafayette, Indiana, and that is the home of Purdue University. And I am a high-tech entrepreneur. I have done many companies in many different fields, ranging from medical devices to computer products, consumer electronics, entertainment, and music. And my most popular field that I enjoy the most is what's called assistive technology, which is technology for people with disabilities. And that company, Tactile Engineering, which I have on my shirt here, is the company that we're talking about a little bit today.
Fantastic. And before we go any further, we want to share your website. Let me make sure that it's taking up my entire screen. And there, so tell us what we're looking at.
What you're taking a look at there is actually a new website that we're just in the process of launching. So this is a new advancement for people that are watching the show. And you're looking at the Cadence Braille tablet computer in that picture. I also have one in my hand that I'm holding, but this is a pocket-sized device, electronic device, designed for people who have a disability and need a tactile mode of communication. So there are pins that move up and down on the surface, and that makes an image that you can feel with your fingers. It works just like a phone or a tablet or other type of computer, but instead of just looking at the screen, you can touch the screen as well. And that lets you do things like Braille for those who are Braille readers, but for those who are not, such as people with low vision that have not learned Braille, or people with autism, people with sensory disabilities, or those getting occupational therapy, you can do raised print, you can do images, graphics, animation. It's designed to work the same way you would use your cell phone, but to work in a way that is meaningful for you as a tactile user.
And can you tell us what the cost of it is?
Well, that's actually one of the most interesting parts. So we work with federal and state agencies and nonprofits and NGOs to find ways to purchase this for people that cannot afford to purchase it. And of course, devices in our assistive technology space are expensive and complicated. But if you do want to purchase it from us directly, then that cost is $49.95, $4,995.
Okay. And so that brings us to our very next question. And that next question is, please talk about your business. So we want to talk a little bit more about your business.
Tactile engineering was started in 2014 and by myself and several partners. We are all very technical people. My background is in chemistry and math and physics. Their background was in engineering. And we wanted to develop a portable device for people who needed tactile learning methods, which is the cadence. And it's an incredibly challenging physics project. So we spent many years on research and development. We filed our patents all the way back in 2014. So we do own the technology, the IP. And originally we thought we would license that to other companies to make the product for us. But as it turns out, it's extremely complicated to make this device. One cadence that I'm holding has 3,500 parts. So it's just a marvel of modern technology. And in order to make these, we ended up having to develop a high-tech robotic assembly factory, which is located in Lafayette, Indiana. And we have about 30 employees now that help us to manufacture and sell this Cadence tablet across the world. It's all done with robots and lasers, and our entire supply chain is in the United States, and almost our entire supply chain is actually in the state of Indiana. So we're proud of this Made in America product, and you can buy one as I'm holding in my hand. And as a matter of fact, they physically connect, and they connect also by Bluetooth, so you can connect them up to four, which is more of a tablet, like an iPad sized device. And I have on the surface here a square made out of these pins. And in fact, you can see that as I do things, here I'm rotating that square and turning it into a cube. And so that image updates automatically as I update the camera. So that's a little bit about tactile engineering. We launched this product 18 months ago, and we have basically been back ordered from day one. This has been very popular. We're currently in 11 states and 5 countries, and expanding every day, and would love to help any of the watchers and listeners that might want some help.
That's fantastic. And congratulations on almost 2 years of production. Just curious, do you have any support from Purdue?
We do. As a matter of fact, Purdue is one of our investors. So one of the things we did with this company that's a little unusual in assistive technology is that we went and raised money from mainstream institutional investors and venture capital. And we had 3 primary institutional investors, and one of which was Purdue University's venture fund, which is a venture capital fund. So we were able to raise some money to help to build the factory. And as you can imagine, factories are quite expensive to build. And we are hoping to showcase that mainstream venture capital funding can be used to start assistive technology companies and be successful, be a good investment, as well as doing a great thing for society. And we hope that many other assistive technology companies would follow in our footsteps.
That's fantastic. The very next question is, of course, what is assistive technology? So before we look at what um, the internet says it is, I want you to tell us what your definition is.
Well, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, I was an early board member of the Assistive Technology Industry Association. So we helped to start the industry association that's associated with all of these gizmos and doodads, so to speak. But the simple answer is it's technology that helps people with assisting their lives in some way. That could be largely is due to having a disability of some type, but it could also just be a preference. It could be something that helps you use senses that you don't have. It could be something that helps you with mobility or orientation. It could be something that helps you to communicate. It could be all of the above. And we find that we use much technology now in our everyday lives as a society. Everyone has a cell phone. People very commonly will use tablets or kiosks or computers. Even cars nowadays have quite a bit of technology in the interface. And often people with disabilities are underrepresented in that area and are left behind. And so the purpose of assistive technology is to bring that mainstream consumer tech into the lives of those with various disabilities.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's exciting news. The fact that you were part of the foundation of that agency. We were just going to share a couple of other things about assistive technology, and we're going to share your LinkedIn page right now. And um, I thought I had your business pulled up on there, but we'll go back to the original touchable page. And then we're going to look at the American Foundation for the Blind. Can you talk about the things that you have shared with them, or is there a collaboration?
AFB is a nonprofit. They've been around for quite a long time, and they're a little bit different than some of the other nonprofits in that they're not a member organization, but they're more of an awareness and information and advocacy organization. It's really a great resource for anyone that might have vision loss or have a family member with vision loss to go to that organization and to ask for help and support in their journey with a vision loss. So great that you mentioned AFB as an organization that can help.
We have a question from Clark Lopez Waterman from New Mexico, USA. Do you sell all over the world or just in the USA?
Well, that's a great question. We currently have these cadence units in 5 countries, and we have inquiries from new countries all the time. Our primary focus right now is the United States, but we will sell them worldwide. And of course, every country has different rules and regulations on imports that we have to determine and follow. And if you read the news, you may have heard the word tariff. And so we have to understand tariffs between countries. So it's not as simple as adding a state like New Mexico, for example. If you want to go halfway across the world, there's a little bit more to it. But absolutely, we do sell these worldwide.
Let me ask you: is there an issue with using your device with languages that are not English?
We have designed this device to be worldwide or monolithic, might be the term that you would use. So as it turns out, making figures out of pixels is something that every cell phone does. And we don't particularly care what the pixels represent. There's no bias there. So if we want to print those words in English, we can do that. If we want to print them in Arabic, we can do that. All of that is possible in the same way that your cell phone can produce multiple languages. And one extra thing that's kind of interesting for those people who are Braille readers, as it turns out, Braille uses the same characters for every language in the world. The same dots, the 6 dots that make a Braille letter, are the same in every Braille language. They might mean something different, but it's the same dots. So once you've built a device that's capable of making those dots, it can be used anywhere by anyone.
That's fantastic. The next question is, what should everybody know about assistive technology?
Wow, that's a great question. I think the most important thing to understand is that assistive technology is technology. And we have an expectation in our society that we can tune in to see what the latest development from Apple is, or we want to go and find out what Google is doing on a day-to-day basis. Microsoft has just released a new computing system or software. So we have that technology that sort of pervades our lives. We don't have to think too much about how we might use an Apple phone or an Android phone. We just use it. We don't have to think about when we push the button on our computer how it turns on. It just turns on and we start typing or doing whatever it is that we need to do. The problem with assistive technology historically has been that it's been underfunded and it's been behind that technology curve. So you might have a computer that runs Microsoft Windows that has been around since the 1980s, let's say, but you might not have full access to that as a person with a disability until much later, maybe 10 years later, waiting for technology to catch up. It might be difficult to turn that computer on because the assistive technology you use is complicated. It has to be connected, it has to be configured. And so we're trying to change all of that as an industry now. We want it to be that it just works, to use Apple's phrase. You turn it on, it connects. It's like putting headphones on a phone. It might be a little bit of setup, but it's something that anybody could do. And that's really the goal behind this modern movement of assistive technology. And so what we're trying to show is not that assistive technology has to be an afterthought or secondary, but that actually it's at the forefront, in some case, leading the charge. And our company, for example, really is an extremely high-tech company leading a charge in high-tech robotic assembly. And I know of other assistive technology companies who are way out on the cutting edge of technology, doing things that are amazing in the mainstream, but happen to have a great benefit for people with disabilities. And we want to see more of that.
That's fantastic. We have another question from Clara Lopez Waterman. How fast does the bumps have to move to be fast enough for Braille or other imaging?
That's a really good question. So, as it turns out with our device, we have an extremely fast refresh speed, is what it's called. We can actually play video on our device. So the dots move so fast that it's almost impossible to track them with your fingers. So we actually slow down that refresh speed a little bit so that people's fingers have time to interpret the dots. But the short answer is that it is important to have a fast refresh speed for dots when you're reading or interpreting with your fingers. You have to have the ability to do animations, and you have to be able to have your fingers on the dots while they're moving up and down. And that's a really tricky problem. It's not something that is really common with a phone that is just for visual use. That display works whether you're looking at it or not. But to make a device where the dots can move under your fingers while your fingers are on them was pretty tricky, and we spent a lot of time on that.
That's amazing. I'm going to talk a little bit religion right now. So, I was a special education teacher in autism class, and our go to device for my students' high school autism was iPad. And we had a lot of great software. Apple was, and this is 2020. No, I'm sorry, 2012, 2013. Um, is when I was in that classroom and I was the teacher for that class. And we used iPads primarily as our assistive technology devices. It was fantastic. The students got a lot out of them. But I was just curious what you thought about Apple versus Google.
Well, that's not quite the kind of religious discussion I was expecting when you introduced the question, but it's a great question. We would be in that area what you call agnostic. We support every platform, whether that be Windows or Apple or Mac OS, iOS, Linux, working on Android support, which is a little more tricky because there's so many different varieties of Android to support. But we want people to just simply be able to use this device with whatever they're already comfortable with. I will say among those with visual impairments, the iPhone in particular is a very popular device because of Apple's inclusion of VoiceOver, which is a way to allow your phone to read content to you and to navigate that phone if you are not able to see the screen. So that does tend to be pretty common among visually impaired users. But for users with other types of disabilities, they they use everything. And I know several people with disabilities that have 4 or 5 different devices that they use on a regular basis. And that's just like anybody else might do that.
We have a question, another question. What advice do you have for parents with whose children are visually impaired?
Okay, that's another great question. And to be honest, I get calls from parents a lot. I like to sometimes answer questions with a story. So I'd like to tell a short story.
Sure.
And the reason I do is I think that storytelling is how we connect as a culture and as a society. I believe it's extremely important for children to have role models. And I can tell a story about some role models. So when I first came to Purdue University for graduate school, I was teaching math and science classes. And these are classes such as calculus, physics, organic chemistry, biology, really advanced courses that are very difficult for anyone to learn. And at that time, we had 3 blind students come in and request help and accommodations in learning these science materials. And I was assigned to help to teach them, all 3 students from Indiana. And of the course of learning how to teach these students and learning from these students, a couple of remarkable things happened. The first is that these students ended up being at the top of their class. They were some of my best students and had a grasp of the material that was even better than the sighted students I was teaching. And secondly, 2 of those students went on to get PhDs in chemistry, and one got multiple master's degrees. So the reason I
Wow.
say that is for the parents of a visually impaired child to understand that there is a pathway. Your child could do anything that any child could do. And it's important for them to know that. It's important for them to be able to feel comfortable in asking questions and reaching out. I would encourage any parent to take a look at advocacy groups like AFB that you mentioned earlier. Take a look at resources. There are a couple of organizations for parents of blind children specifically to help the parents to navigate. And of course, you'll have challenges in the school system in navigating what's called an IEP, individualized educational plan for your child. But as long as you can advocate for the things that that child needs, and I would absolutely encourage tactile literacy at a very young age, that child can do anything that they want. And I have, Tony, hundreds, if not thousands, of success stories of children that I've watched in my career with different types of disabilities, and in particular, visual impairments. I've seen them grow up and I've seen them accomplish some just phenomenal things.
You make me want to tell a story, so I'm going to tell a brief story as well. When I moved to Atlanta to go to school, um, I worked with a church, which is now my home church, and I had a mentor there, and his name was Reverend Haskell Murray Senior, and he was an amazing individual. He was visually impaired. He was a musician. He was he had the latest technology at the time. We're talking about 1986, 87. And whatever technology was out there, he had it. There was not anything that he could do. I mean, he was a minister, a choir director. There wasn't anybody he didn't know, and there wasn't anything he couldn't do.
Amazing.
So so visual impairment is not a barrier to success, as you have already shared. We have another question from Clylock Lopez Waterman. How have they dealt with emojis in Braille world?
Well, that's a great question, and maybe I can try to do a live demo here. We'll see if my manual dexterity is enough. So I'm going to actually go back out to our main menu on the device, and you may see some of these dots moving around. I'm actually going to enter a drawing program, and so here I have my drawing program open, and I have a canvas that I can draw on, and I'm moving my cursor around, and I'm going to attempt to draw an emoji with one hand while I hold the device with another hand. And I am not known for being an artist. So, and here I've drawn a circle, I've drawn a few eyeballs, and then I have drawn a smiley face. And so this is my extremely poor rendition of a smiley face emoji that someone could feel. And the reason I do this is to show that there is a way to do these emojis as a tactile graphic. And once the student learns to interpret those emojis, they can have as much fun as any other student. So we do have quite a few school children that carry these with them and use them with their phones. And so there'll be text messaging. There are some Braille characters that can be used to represent emojis, but that's kind of sterile, I guess I would use the word, right? And so for the more fun version, they will draw pictures and send these emojis to back and forth to each other, to teachers. And one of the funniest things I ever saw was a little girl that had a visual impairment. She had really not been able to draw, and people don't realize, but if you can't see, it's really hard to draw. And so we showed her this drawing program, and the very first thing she drew was a picture of her teacher and gave it to the teacher. And that was quite
Oh,
heartwarming
wow.
to see that.
Yes. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you for the demo. Clyde Lopez Waterman is back again. Do you incorporate sound in your devices? Does it have speakers?
We do indeed incorporate sound. So the idea is that we give you three different things. We give you sound, we give you vision, and we give you touch. So you can hear it, you can see it, and you can feel it. Now, some people may not have functional vision, so they rely on sound and touch. Some people may have functional vision and they prefer to rely more on vision and touch instead of the sound, and so forth. We have a lot of games which are very popular with the children and actually some of the adults as well. And they make a lot of sounds and are interactive. And then all of the menus and the content is spoken, and the device is fully interoperable with other assistive technology that's out there. So, for example, if you use an iPhone with VoiceOver, Apple released a special patch for iOS that supports the cadence natively, so you can be listening while you're feeling with your fingers, which is a great way to boost your productivity considerably.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Clyde, for those great questions that you've been sharing with us tonight. Um, so, um, what's next for you?
Well, that's a great question. It's tough being an entrepreneur because you usually are thinking a lot farther ahead than you can physically do, and you're always thinking the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I think that the first step for us is to spread the word about the cadence and get these out as far as we can. We want to do all 50 states in the United States. We want to do as many countries in the world as we can do. If you look at the population demographics of people with visual impairments, they vary not only from state to state in the United States, but greatly in the world. There are huge amounts of visually impaired people in India, for example, that have a need. So our first step is to try to get the mission about the cadence out and get that into as many people's hands as we can. And that's not just for visual impairment. We have users with autism that this has been very helpful for. My own son, actually, my youngest son is autistic, and he used this device to help him to learn his letters and to write his letters, which was a difficult skill for him. The tactile modality was quite helpful. We do have lots of new innovations happening almost every day with the cadence. Our software updates very regularly. We're adding apps all the time. So if you have a particular app you'd like to add, we can do that for you. And that software comes with the cadence. And the apps, it works very similar to the App Store or the Google Play Store, where we have different apps embedded into our Cadence OS system. And of course, we've got new and exciting technology planned on the horizon, in the form of other accessories and other devices that utilize the same core technology. So stay tuned, I would say.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm curious, is there a particular reason why there seems to be a lot more visual impairment in India?
Well, there's what you find when you dig into statistics is that there is a high correlation of visual impairment with other types of societal issues. We call this concomitant. So, for example, people with diabetes very often have a visual impairment. And some areas of the world, including places in the United States, have high incidence of diabetes due to societal factors and in the case of India, not having access to the healthcare to prevent the disease from reaching a point where it would affect your vision. And the same is true for other types of medical issues. There's correspondence with socioeconomic status, and there are certain populations of people that are more prone to genetic diseases or congenital diseases that can affect vision and so forth. So we actually want to try to target some of those with the greatest need as early as possible for the very reason that they have the greatest need. In the United States, we have some communities in areas of the country that are extremely high incidence in visual impairment. And I'll give you an example. The nationwide average for visual impairment, severe visual impairment, which would mean that you would require a tactile mode for communication, is about 3% of the total population. That's an incredibly high number that people don't realize is almost an epidemic. That number has grown and expanded very quickly. And in fact, the fastest growing demographic of visually impaired people isn't who you think. It's not elderly people, it's children. And that's due to
Wow.
things like cancers and juvenile diabetes. So it's scary as a society that we are underprepared for these folks to be entering the workforce age and to become the next generation of people that run the country and need to be able to do all the things that we expect people to do. Some states are as high as 10% of their population being visually impaired. It's really astounding. So this is a big crisis, and we're trying to help get out in front of it a little bit by having technology to help.
We talked a little bit about, I said religion, talking about Apple and Google, but I really want to ask you why you do what you do. And I am asking because I think I might have an idea why you do it, but I want to hear from you on why you do what you do. Why are you doing this?
I get asked that a lot, and it's an interesting question. It is kind of an odd thing, and I was on my way to becoming a research scientist or professor, and kind of took a right angle turn. When I was younger, speaking of religion, I was actually in the seminary program studying to be a Franciscan priest, and I ended up going at a right angle and not doing that. But the idea of service has always been very important to me. My personal faith has always been very important to me, and I believe that God has created everyone with certain talents and abilities, and sometimes you have a calling to do something. I found out by accident through my experiences at Purdue that I was pretty good at helping people with disabilities, and then later found out that, gee, there were all these problems that existed that weren't being done, and somebody's got to do it. And I guess at least right now, the somebody is me. So here I am, a number of decades later, still trying to solve some of these problems.
It's absolutely amazing what you're doing, what you continue to do, and what you will continue to do. I'm overwhelmed with your I'm going to say ministry, and maybe that's not the word you would use, but that's the way I see it in terms of you know you doing what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I want to share your website touchable one more time.
Tony, it's interesting you mentioned the ministry. We all have journeys that lead us different places, and I do see the parallel between what we do here and the type of ministry I had thought about many years ago. But I'll tell you the most amazing and special thing that's near and dear to my heart is that I have so many partners, investors, and employees and customers that have jumped on the train and gone for a ride along with me. And it's the most humbling thing in the world to infect other people with that sense of mission. I'm sure you've run into this yourself. It's really a tremendous feeling to know that others are taking up the cause, and someday when we're not here, there'll be others to carry that mission forward. And that's the best thing you can do as a legacy for all of humanity.
Well, thank you, sir, for your service. I think a mutual friend is sending a message. Hershey, I hear that you have not gone to Hawaii. How can, how can we work on the Grinch to get to Hawaii? You'd have to decode that for us.
Love when Hershey calls in or types in and into the various programs I'm on. What a great person and a great content creator on his own right. I had the pleasure of being on his show recently as well. I have traveled very extensively, been very blessed in my life to have met people all over the world and gotten to know their stories and their hopes and dreams and hardships. And I have been overseas. I've been all over North America. I've been to the 48 mainland US states extensively, every major city. I have never been to Alaska or Hawaii. And so that is on my bucket list. And I
Okay.
hope maybe we have a viewer or listener from Hawaii that wants to bring the cadence to Hawaii, and maybe we'll get Hershey to come along for the journey if we do that. And Tony, you're welcome too. We'll take a Hawaii road show.
Okay. Okay. Hershey's back. He says, I know both of you gentlemen have a love for basketball. Can you explain why? Well,
Wow.
I can talk about it real briefly. So, as a youngster, I was actually a very good football player. I mean, really good. And I grew up in the early '70s, and I was all set to go to the powerhouse, the I want to say the factory, the football factory high school in my city. And my mother had other plans. So in middle school, I had played basketball, and she enrolled me in a high school that did not have a football team.
Oh
So
no.
I didn't have any choice but to play basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player, but I believe I was a better football player. And who knows what would have happened if I played football. But I did I did I did get some county recognition as a basketball player. So Dave, your basketball story.
Well, I've always had a love of sports, and I grew up in a rural farming community in the Midwest. So, in terms of basketball, that there are, one religion in the Midwest, and it's basketball. So, I was exposed at a young age, and my second favorite sport was baseball, which may be where my heart lies. And I played both basketball and baseball a good chunk of my life. I played baseball all the way up through college and into some minor league tryouts, and um, decided that minor league baseball is not the greatest way to support a family. But I do have a funny story about basketball. I went to a very small grade school, farm school, and there were a very small number of students, and they would join grades together in order to have enough students to teach the class. And in our seventh and eighth grade classroom, we had 5 boys in total. And that was the basketball team. Automatically, you're on the team. You're not allowed to be sick. You're not allowed to get injured. And so I have a lot of nights I remember playing 3-on-5 or 4-on-5 because somebody was sick that day or their mom couldn't bring them or whatever the case might be.
Wow, that's amazing. And I have to issue an apology. I used the word Grinch because that's the way I saw it, but it was actually Grant. So, can you talk more about that question that Hershey originally asked
Yeah,
about Hawaii?
yeah, so we have had a lot of success, as I mentioned earlier, on getting funding for the cadence so that people who need these can get them at no charge to themselves. And uh, I have to mention my home state of Indiana. We have met with the state legislature, with the governor, and they have been extremely generous and have supported this program for school children in Indiana to receive the cadence. So we have a very strong program here. We also have strong programs developing in Ohio, Alabama, and Florida, in which case the governments either already have a program or are creating a special program to support this for whether it be school children or people for job accommodation, or in some cases just for independent living. And as we expand state by state, we work with the state legislature or the governor's office, or sometimes with a large nonprofit, to develop a program in that state that allows us to actually embed employees in the state, make sure that the training and support is all there. We don't want people to feel left out. We have very smart people like Hershey, for example, that we identify per state to help us with communication and support and training. But we don't have anybody in Hawaii yet. And so I think what he's
Okay,
thinking is let's get someone in Hawaii as a champion. Let's get a grant from the state to come and do the cadence in Hawaii.
that's fantastic, and I wish you the best with that opportunity. I know, I would not have a problem with going to Hawaii and participating in any kind of activity. So I know that, as you say, it's on your bucket list. So
There we go.
we're hoping that everything works out and that you do get some advocacy in Hawaii. We're down to our last question. You're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
I would say that I want the world to know that people with disabilities ultimately are people. And if you treat people of any kind with dignity and respect and the love that we should all have for each other as humans, you'll receive that reward tenfold. That may be in embracing and celebrating the success of someone that you know and have met. It may be in seeing someone accomplish something that you never thought possible. It may be in that person giving back to you in a way that you never would have expected. If we all followed those simple thoughts, the world would be such a better place. We have many crises facing us as a world. In particular, our population is declining, our workforce is declining. Many countries are very concerned about how we will have enough people in the workforce to support the rest of the population as our population ages. And we can't overlook any population when it comes to participation in society, certainly not at a time when we are facing economic crises, workforce shortages, and a kind of lack of cohesion as a society. So I encourage everybody to really think about including everyone and thinking about everyone and reaching out to everyone, because like I said, the rewards are so much greater than the cost, so to speak, of a small amount of time and understanding invested.
Wow. Thank you, Dave Schlechenbach. Pretty good. Was that better?
That was better.
Okay. Um, Again, we want to thank you so much for being here on Conversation with Tony Mobley. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by Clark Lopez Waterman and his team. And we want to thank Mimo Live and Zoom for their support of Conversations with Tony Mobley. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new episodes and great conversations with Tony Mobley. We want to thank you for over 100 episodes, nearing 200 episodes. When you have time, we ask that you go back, look at some of those past episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. We hope that you will find something that you like and hopefully is helpful to you. Dave, we want to thank you so much for being a part of our conversation today, for doing the work you do. Absolutely amazing work that you are doing, and being the person who you are. There will not be a conversation with Tony Mobley next week, the 17th. However, you might want to check out the YouTube page. There might be a nice little rebroadcast of something that was very special in the Conversation with Tony Mobley archives. We will resume Conversation with Tony Mobley on September 24th, and it will be a panel conversation on special education and exceptional people. We may have some actual exceptional people participating with our panel on the 24th. And Dave, we hope that you can join us in terms of asking questions and supporting that conversation as well. And so we want to say thank you to everyone. God bless you and good night. Take care.